Before we begin, 3 messages. When my company needed to develop a key mobile product, one that I was counting on as a new source of revenue, I knew exactly who to turn to. Macadamian. They delivered on time with incredible attention to detail, and I was able to get product into customers' hands faster than I ever thought possible. I've personally known them for 10 years, and they do make great products even better. Check them out at www.macadamian.com. What mobile platform do companies like eBay, NBC Universal, the Los Angeles Times, Razorfish, and PayPal use to build their cross-platform native applications? Titanium by Appcelerator. They aren't alone. There are now over 25,000 apps deployed by Appcelerator, which has been called the Rosetta Stone of app development. And you can start now for free. Just go to www.appcelerator.com for more information. So, you've taken some of the advice that has come from Untether.tv guests, built an app, and now you're turning your attention to generating some hard-earned revenue. Then you should be looking at Pontiflex app leads. Some of your peers who are using app leads are earning CPMs 100 times the industry average. And if you need any other reasons to start, I'll give you 2 more. You can run sign-up ads from top brands, the ones that you recognize, and it won't take your precious users out of your app. Go to appleads.com, that's appleads.com to sign up. Hello everybody, welcome to Untether.tv. I'm your host, Rob Woodbridge, and this is of course that place you come to day after day, month after month, to hear these casual conversations with mobile rock stars, to really understand how they are building mobile into their business or how they're building the infrastructure to help you get your business into mobile. And that's really what we're focusing on today. I had a great interview with a while back with Ann Frisbee from InMobi, and the reaction from you guys was great. And this is a big company. This is a company that does millions and millions and millions of advertising displays every month. And they just recently acquired a company called Sprout. And the company called Sprout actually does HTML5 rich media advertising. And that was really intriguing. So what does that mean? We're going to dive into that with the founder of Sprout, Carnet Williams, who is on the other side here. Carnet, thanks for coming on here and being a part of this. Really appreciate your time.
Of course.
Well, and you know, one of the things that attracted to me about this was you saw this coming. So in 2008, you launched your company. You're in San Mateo, and what ended up happening was, you know, probably you were a little advanced in the industry when it came to HTML5 and even a little bit around in mobile advertising. But Sprout, you know, a couple of years later, saw something in your company and, InMobi, a couple of years later, saw something in your company and bought it. So why don't we just kind of go around and talk about a little bit about what Sprout was and why you think InMobi decided to bring your company on board.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob, and aloha, as we say in Hawaii, to everybody out there on the internet. You know, as with our startups, we started back in 2008, and we launched at a demo conference as Sprout. But to be honest, we actually started doing something a little bit different. We were very focused on Flash and Flash content back then. We thought that we had built this great platform that allowed anyone to build Flash content, be it ads, widgets, even Facebook applications.
So web focus, is that what you were doing?
Yep, totally web focused, desktop focused. But as with all things, startups do pivot. And so we made a bet almost 2 years ago on HTML5. We saw it coming around. We're all sort of heavy Mac heads. And so we saw it coming around with not only the iPhone and Apple's iOS, but really my co-founder, Kevin Hughes, is one of 6 on the World Wide Web Hall of Fame. He actually put the first images online on the web. And, you know, when you talk to Kevin, he's seen the internet grow from basically nothing to what it is today. And in talking to him, we realized that HTML5 really was the future. And so I would say a little bit of luck, a little bit of good timing, and a lot of wisdom from my co-founder, who's been here from the get-go, helped us really make the shift to HTML5.
It's pretty, I mean, the debate rages today, Carnet, about HTML5 versus anything, right? I think that there's an accepted there's an acceptance when it comes to the web that HTML5 is that natural evolution, and whatever happens there. But I mean, this debate goes on in mobile all the time, whether it's HTML5 apps, or native applications for the OS. And obviously, it would have taken somebody quite a bit of, I don't know, vision, I would say, to be able to bring that desire to listen. We're putting our stamp on HTML5 because I don't know a lot of people that were having that debate 2.5 years ago. So it must have been something. What did you find it risky at that time?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely risky. I mean, we basically bet the company on it. We diverted 100% of our resources. We stopped development. At that time, Facebook applications were all the rage. Yeah. We basically just turned our back on a very sort of strong revenue stream and said, this is the future and we want to be there. And I think that, that's the entrepreneurial spirit, but it's also the realization that you want to be at the beginning of a really big hockey a puck curve versus sort of catching up along the way. And so, yeah, we made the bet, definitely.
And obviously, no regrets. Kind of 2.5 years later, but the debate is still raging, isn't it? Around the validity of HTML5 and when we're actually going to see HTML5 as a dominant language.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same holy war that we saw between Mac and PCs, between Linux and Unix, but it's really just down to, I always say, use the right technology for the right purpose. I still believe that there's a great use for Flash out there. Am I want to say the Flash is dead? No, but I think that if you can use HTML5 appropriately for the type of content, web apps that you're going to roll out, it's very much in line with basically everything moving up into what people have been calling the cloud, or really sort of everything through your browser. I always say, use technology for its right purpose and intent, and you'll come out really well. So I think HTML5 is great for what we focus on around mobile content. It's lightweight. I mean, I won't get into all the specifics, but it's lightweight. It's low impact on the processor, low impact on the battery. It's the right tool for the job that you're trying to do on mobile. So yes, I think HTML5 on mobile is excels over Flash today.
So I mean, you're now they InMobi bought Sprout. I mean, talk about that for a minute. They're now making this bet on HTML5, but as an advertising layer, right? As a rich media advertising layer. Why do you think why do you think they're making this bet? And are you seeing this in other companies similar to InMobi, or is InMobi just doing the same kind of leap that you took 2.5 years ago?
I think we're seeing a lot of things, right? I think we're seeing the opportunity right now to bring in big brand dollars into the mobile ecosystem. Yes. Everyone's always said for years that online advertising would bring the 30-second TV spot budget online. I think what we're really seeing is the promise of brands being able to reach users in all corners of the world, first of all, but also in a way that's really unlike any other methods that they've had. And so I think when we think about rich media, it's really as a way to entice the brand dollars, again, the 30-second TV buys, which is sort of the holy dollar that everyone wants in advertising. It's a method of bringing it to mobile devices. And to call it rich media in some ways is almost shortchanging the format. We've seen rich media online, and 300 by 250 ads that you see on the front page of Yahoo. That's a lot of animations. It's a lot of sort of bang, where they're just trying to catch your attention. Yeah. If you think about the mobile device, and everyone here has one, it's unlike anything. You touch it. You literally are holding it this close to your face. You're swiping it. You're tapping it. You're touching it. It's about as close to a brand as you can get. And so really the promise of rich media on the mobile environment is how close can a brand engage their users? And I think we're just at the tip of that. I think the content is one. I think targeting is another. I think, pretty much it's having that one-on-one conversation that you can't otherwise.
And I mean, obviously, and we're jumping ahead here, but the great thing is that it's all measurable, right? More measurable than anything you can imagine at this point. It's not a slice or a snapshot. It's tangible and real, right? These are numbers that are measurable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you always want to be a little careful when you talk about measurement with advertisers, right? They intend want to measure everything, but they almost want to measure nothing. And so, the promise of online advertisers was always like, well, we can measure everything. We can measure who saw it and when and how long. I think you still go back to the basic premise of what advertising is about. It's, what is that long-term awareness of a particular brand? And you have to be careful. Just because it's mobile doesn't mean it's got any additional
superpowers.
Yeah, it does have superpowers. Exactly. But yes, I think measurement is important. I mean, we're always striving to do that. We've been, very focused at Sprout for a while around our engagement analytics. And I think there's opportunities to maybe revisit what sort of metrics we're capturing. I mean, we capture, how long does someone tap on something, or how long does someone slide, or is it a complete slide? These are different nuances that you don't really get in the desktop world. So I think it'll be very, very interesting and fun to see sort of what types of metrics we can come up with. It's a wild, wild west out there. So
well, you're basically inventing as you go,
and it's great.
That's the best thing about being an entrepreneur in this space at this time. In this, because take a look back is that you were around during the web days, and it was always it wasn't a difficult sell, but it was much more difficult than mobile. And it didn't land on everybody's desktop because not everybody had a desktop, right? Yeah. So not everybody had high-speed internet or any internet or a computer. And, so it was almost like an interim step. And I believe this firmly, that people are now talking about digital first, right? That it's like you got to start thinking. Newspapers are thinking digital first. Book publishers are thinking digital first. Mobile or commerce, commerce companies are thinking digital first. And but what we should be thinking is that that's an interim. It's an anomaly. It's mobile first, always mobile first. Because we were talking right before we started recording that this isn't localized. This isn't in San Mateo or in Ottawa or San Francisco or New York or Boston. This is global, man. Like this is everywhere, and it happened with such a ferocity that I think it took people by surprise. But it's been coming for 15 years. Yeah. Right. So
yeah, and I like that. I like how you think of it as the stepping stone. It was almost like, desktop PCs, high-speed internet was the appetizer. Yep. We're here now at the main course, and it really is that penetration, which I think is really amazing. I mean, I know that a lot of folks use the term sort of first touch. It's the first screen that we all have because you check your mail on your phone, and then you go home and actually write a long reply.
Right.
But, from the work that I've been doing within Moby, traveling to the far corners of the world, it's the only screen. Yeah. There is a huge number of this world's population that will get and transmit information solely from a connected mobile device, whatever that device is. It's kind of eerie that they say the world is flat. I mean, the world is basically on one screen now. Yeah. I mean, anyone, anywhere can communicate. And I think that's why the speed. I think, as we say, we're having fun inventing because it's moving so fast. I know that, when Moby bought us, they're like, Carnet, what do you think in 6 to 12 months will be happening? And I'm like, guys, I'm focusing on 3 months from now because it could all change again. I mean, if you look at what's happened in August, right, it's supposed to be a quiet month. Yeah. WebOS is now being shifted out of HP, right? Google has been moving around a whole bunch of their focus. You've got Samsung, you've got all these players and maneuvers, and it's almost as if it's lining up to have hardware, software alignment globally, where you have Windows, Windows Phone 7, and you're going to have WebOS in some format, and you're going to have Android, and you're going to have iOS, and then it's all going to line up, which has never really happened before, right? You always had hardware and software be very independent of each other, and we're starting to see these things starting to line up really quickly globally.
Well, it's the speed with which this is happening, the trimming with which this is happening, it's an unbelievable the pace that we've been going at. I keep thinking, every 6 months it's got to slow down, but all it does is somebody just puts a little bit more accelerant in and pushes a little harder. It's a big market, and I think that there's big enough there's a big enough opportunity for all of these guys to play in it. And it's just a matter of now it's an ecosystem play, right? Which is who's got the best ecosystem, who can not lock people in, but who can keep people, their customers, into that ecosystem by offering enough value. And speed plays with that. The fact that half the population doesn't, looks at it, gets onto the internet and accesses email or accesses their life through a mobile device only, and not just mobile first, not just one screen, as you said, or first screen. Is pretty profound, and the opportunities are astounding. Mm-hmm. So people jumped in, obviously, and this is what we saw. People started building stuff everywhere, right? It's like left, right, up, and down. We got, shotgun apps, fart apps, and then building up into the enterprise. It kind of became legitimate. And a lot of these guys, great entrepreneurs out there, are now looking for ways to turn their applications, their hard work, into some sort of revenue, right? Some sort of money, so they don't have to go out and get a job, right? And really, that's where InMobi comes in, and that's, I think, where what you're doing with Sprout and HTML5, rich media ads, I suppose. But is there what? Why don't you talk about that? The HTML5 as an advertising platform or as an advertising layer. Why is it so important?
Yeah.
Why are people doing this?
I think you hit you really started there in terms of apps. People are getting very used to the fact that there are applications on these phones. It's not just a web interface. It's not just a notebook or an email client. There are these rich apps, be it games, be it sports, be it fashion, whatever it is. And I believe that HTML5 allows you to build these types of experiences that are more app-like. And so when going back to what I thought about rich media advertising on mobile, I want to almost don't want to call it advertising anymore. Right. What we strive to do is find ways to make the content interactive as if it was an application itself. And so when users see an ad, they're not really just seeing, some content with some moving animations. What they're seeing is a way to interact. It brings them closer to their brand, and really, I think, brings a lot of that stickiness, a lot of that brand awareness. And so what HTML5 provides you is a very simple building block for building application-like experiences very quickly, very lightweight, all sitting within the browser. I mean, if you think about the technology behind it, all it really is a web view. Right? When you see a rich media ad inside of an app, all you're doing is using that app's capability to basically use the phone's browser so that you can display HTML5. And I think that's why HTML5 and its type of technology is very akin to mobile, because mobile really does, in a lot of ways, revolve around the browser that's built into the OS. I mean, I think that's why Apple puts so much effort into stacking Safari into the OS itself. It's an integral part. It's completely tied to the hardware, because they know that that's the future of sort of your window to the world. And I think with Android and WebOS, WebOS actually is a great browser, but with Android, that's one of the areas where I think they could use a little bit of help, is really marry that browser much tighter to the hardware. But not to get aside, it really is the whole concept of how do we engage with users in a way that doesn't look like an interruptive ad, where it actually looks like it's part of the experience on the phone itself. And I think HTML5, the greatest thing about it that I always chuckle at is that it's not even released. It's not even a release standard. What we're working with here are bits and pieces of something that's still being worked on. We've just taken the opportunity to say, look, let's take as much as we can of what's available and make the most of it. And I think it's fantastic. I can only imagine, if given a bit more time, how much more sort of sophisticated the technology is going to become. And I can't imagine what we'll be building. I mean, I'll say it's 6 to 12 months from now. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. And in the end, it's about the user experience. In the end, it's not so much what the technology is, not what's being used to build it, but how does a brand like, a top 5,000 global brand get in front of its user in such an intimate environment as being in front of their phone, in front of their face, possibly standing in front of that brand's store. That's the ultimate. And you know what? If it's HTML5, I'm all for it. But if it's blank technology that comes up in 6 months, we'll be ready for that also.
And I mean, it's so right. You started by this whole session by saying, listen, it's not about the technology, it's about the user experience. It's about getting in front of the right technology for the right use at the right time at the right place. But you got to think that part of this is also, from an advertiser standpoint, part of it is also, look, we want to build once and deploy to as many platforms as we can. We want to make sure that we don't spend a lifetime building something like this, right? iAd, it's not only $500,000 to be a part of it, but it's also like $500,000 in production costs to be able to get it in there. So, is it when you look at HTML5 as a platform? And I mean, your technology is great. It's like drag and drop. It seems to be something that anybody can build. But is it like does that play into it? Or when you approach somebody who's wants to get engaged with this and build and reach an audience, do you find that a lot of them are saying, listen, we really want to reach this audience, but we have a sizable enough budget to be able to get this done? I mean, are you finding that it's cheaper, better, lighter? I mean,
yeah, I mean, if anything, companies are opportunistic, and the reason that we have been so successful over the last year and a half is that HTML5 is really, really tough, and here's why. It reminds me back to the early days of the web when you had IE, Mozilla, and you had Netscape, you had all these different browsers, and I remember when web designers would curse every single day because the website they had to build like 4 times depending on what browser was visiting. Well, you take that and you actually multiply it by tens, if not tenfold, in terms of when you're building for mobile devices, you're dealing with both an operating system and a device matrix that is unheard of, right? You've got 4 flavors of iOS that you're really supporting, which is actually the easiest, right? iOS is awesome. You just support 4 versions of iOS and you're pretty good to go.
Yep.
Android is a whole different beast. You've got 4 to 5 versions. You've got the smartphone versus the tablet version of Android, and then you have all these different implementations on the carrier. And so when someone wants to build an HTML5, let's call it an ad unit by hand, it's basically software development. You've got to have an HTML5 coder, not a designer here, a coder, who can build but understand all the nuances of all the different handsets, all the different tags that need to be used. You're basically building a piece of software that has to run across multiple device and operating systems. And that's really, I think, what brought Sprout sort of up to the front, was that we solved that problem. You know, our mantra is build once and deliver everywhere. You actually almost set me up perfect. You're like, oh yeah, build and deploy everywhere. It's absolutely it. And to be dead honest, if HTML5 and mobile was you only had to build it once and it worked everywhere, I wouldn't have a company. You know, there would be no reason to use our platform, but our platform is there. And then you add in the overly complex layer of different SDKs and publishers. So not only have operating system and devices, but then you start overlaying multiple ad networks who all have different SDKs, multiple aggregators and mediators who all have different SDKs, and multiple publishers who have different integration points. You're now looking at potentially thousands of variables to get an ad to run everywhere. And, you know, honestly, as long as that is the environment, we are the, you know, solution for that. So
it's amazing. Like, at the same way that that mobile spread, so did this complexity, didn't it? Like, it just, you know, all of a sudden it was, you know, I remember talking to people in the mobile industry. You know, when Android came out and they said, listen, this is what we're doing. We're making it free and open source, and we're going to run on everything. Anybody who wants to run it can run it. And, you know, you can take our open source and you can add to it and you can modify it. And I thought, this is like Windows Mobile all over again, where you're basically fragmenting your entire market. Nobody's going to be able to develop on it. And, you know, you don't have a minimum chassis for your hardware. This is going to be a nightmare. And, you know, then Microsoft went into a deep hole for 2 years and emerged with Windows Phone. So I think that, you know, you're right. With all this complexity, that's where the entrepreneurial spirit really does jump out. It's like, okay, well, I got all these connectors and nothing to connect it to, right? So I got to figure out, and I got to figure out how to put it all together and make it so that it's usable. And but so you built the technology, you know, but you built it almost. You know, I've gone through some demos on the website, and it's like, you know, anybody can do it. It's like Dreamweaver for HTML5, isn't it? Yep. So, did you guys built this just from scratch based on your experience? Yeah.
So, as I was saying, we originally built this to build Flash, and our system actually still builds Flash.
It outputs to Flash, does it?
You get it automatically. So when you build a project in our environment, again, it's all web-based. It's all completely visual, drag and drop. Not a single line of code is written or can be injected, which is actually a big benefit.
Sure.
Because anyone receiving our code that's certified us knows exactly what's coming out of our system. But yeah, no, we built, and it goes to testament to our VP of Engineering, Matthew McNeely, and my co-founder Kevin. Is they built a system that is very, very flexible, right? It's something that could build Flash, and within a year was able to be cranking out HTML5 code. And again, everything's optimized. I think the one benefit that we have around HTML5, and it's unlike a product that say Adobe might come out with, is we're very, very specialized in the mobile environment. We've highly optimized the delivery, optimized the code. Everything is built specifically for a mobile environment. And so that was a great advantage to have, having started with that as our initial goal.
So about HTML5 and delivering these ads in HTML5, is there something? Are there limitations? Are there things that you can do in HTML5 that you can't do in any other platform, or are there are there limitations to that? I mean, do you have to balance these things?
Yeah, I mean, there's always limitations. One of the things that we find is that not every device can actually do the same thing. So, you might have an accelerometer access on one phone, but you don't have it on another. Yeah. You might have different versions of Android that actually use totally different HTML5 tags or HTML tags generally. Yeah. So that's one of the things is our system has to be smart enough to know where it's being displayed and making sure that it displays the right functionality or gracefully declines. Like, for example, let's say you have an ad that uses the accelerometer, and for some reason the ad server accidentally threw it up on a device that doesn't have the accelerometer. The unit has to be able to degrade gracefully. So those are things that we have to look out for. And again, it's a complex world, but we definitely try to simplify as much as we can.
Well, so you've had so much experience doing this, right? Where you've built out, you've certainly built out a number of top brands and their ads. There's got to be some kind of common set of themes, some best practices, some common thinking and logic around what you've done, and maybe take it from into two aspects, because there's two different audiences that this would be attracted to. Obviously, those guys who are building mobile applications or web applications for mobile, and then also the advertisers that want to get engaged, right? So how does one work and how does the other one work? What are some of the best practices that you found in both avenues?
Yeah, so I actually attribute a lot of what we do back to our Facebook days. Our platform Start used to be used to build Facebook applications. We actually built many applications for top brands around the world. And the reason I bring that up is that we learned a lot about game mechanics. And I'll use that term specifically around what I think makes for some of the best practices is really thinking about the content in the context of sort of basic game mechanics. How do you engage the user? How do you keep them engaged? And so I think from two ways, when we're talking to brands, the first and foremost is you got to figure out what the brands want. And once you figure that out, you can actually maneuver sort of basic game mechanics to get there. Is it they want them to spend a lot of time with the content? Is it that they want to share the content? Whatever it is. So as I said, don't make these look like ads. Make them look like small applications.
Right.
And then on the flip side, I think for app developers and designers, it seems that keeping it simple works, right? If you have something
amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing. I see so many apps that fail. They're beautiful apps. They're elegantly built, but they were trying to cram 100 different features into it. My recommendation for folks that I see when they bring me in to look at what they're building is start with one thing. Do it really well, then start adding complexity until you start seeing a drop-off, and then simplify it back. Easier said than done. Obviously, certain applications, certain games need to have a lot there. But if you think about just why Zynga has been so darn successful, is they really only have one or two core sort of game mechanics in play. They have all these other social mechanics and social channels and all that. But when it comes down to it, what are you really doing? You're growing something and getting rewards for it. You're either growing something or building something or petting something. I mean, in the end, that's really where the basic mechanics are. And I think a lot of folks, they broke it down to that, should do really well.
So, I mean, when you look at this, is that a lot of people ask when is an appropriate time to bring ads into their applications? What can they expect? And then on the other side is from a brand, how when they're building something, what should they try to do with that ad? So it's an immersive ad. I love the fact that you're not taken away from the application, right? Which is one of those, you click on a banner ad in an app and you're opening up a browser and you've ruined that experience. So that's one practical lesson there. Make sure that you're contained in the app. But I also see a lot of ads that there's really no action, or there's no. It doesn't seem like there's a goal that's associated with it. It's just there. So I mean, what should brands be building in their when it comes to these ads? I mean, what should they be building in it? Is it one feature, one function, one requirement? How do they get engagement?
Yeah, and again, I think it comes back to, I mean, I think there's definitely brands that have it easier, be it entertainment, right? If you've got a movie coming out, yeah, you want people to watch the movie trailer, maybe buy a ticket. I think that's a simple one. But if you're selling auto insurance, it's a little bit tougher. And so I think it really comes back to brands. I think first and foremost, they've got to pick their apps correctly.
Yeah.
You want to get in front of the right types of people at the right time. So obviously you don't want to be interruptive. So it's really good to work with networks or publishers who understand how to weave that experience. I mean, I would like to think, and again, I have no data about this, but I would like to think that users are becoming more familiar with advertising as part of the app experience. Yeah. I think someone playing Angry Birds on their Android phone understands that there's going to be advertisements shown to them, and so it's just sort of at what stage is it shown, as you said, is very important. But what can brands do? It's a basic call to action, right? It's any advertising. What do you want that user to do? You want them to walk away and call somebody? I mean, this click to call functionality now on phones, which actually that's pretty unique, unlike on your desktop. I think that. It's a pretty cool functionality. A lot of people are taking advantage of that. Inline video is big. Video is going to be big on phones for quite a while. Yep. Map functionality. So, hey, where's the closest, brand store that I can find? And I think there'll be more and more. I think what I'd like to see in the future is for ads to actually start interacting with some of the apps that a person has. And so it might be very possible that you see an ad that allows you to store some data into an application or somehow sync in. So who knows? I think that's when you start blurring the lines. Is it an ad or was it a web app that now interacts inside your phone with a in-app app? So again, I think that's the future. We're not quite there yet, but I'd love to see that in the future where these pieces of content become useful and something that you can store on your app. I mean, with NFC coming around the corner, there's no reason I couldn't see an ad, store some sort of NFC payment coupon into my either open wallet from Google or some of the other initiatives that are going on. When I go make the payment, all of a sudden that coupon gets redeemed. And now guess what? As an advertiser, I just said, look, I paid for advertising. I reached the user. The user went in, bought something, used that coupon. Yeah. That is the holy grail, right? You just identified end to end. And I think when you start bringing in NFC, again, it's that not just first touch, it's the only touch. If you're viewing and buying things on your phone, that connection. And this is where I think someone like Google has sort of gone ahead. I mean, in mobile, we're doing this with Smart Pay, but that's, I think, the future of mobile, is that it's all contained in one device. And once that connection happens, once that bridge is made, it's an open gate. It is going to be an amazing time to sort of be in advertising, because it's going to change. I want to come up with a new word for it. I don't know what it is. If any of you out there have a advice or idea, but it shouldn't be called advertising anymore. It's gone past that on mobile for sure.
And I think that's what it was. Is that yeah? I mean, it's so astute, right? Is that what we're seeing here is something you can't put words into it. It's like a publishing industry. Traditional publishing, how you put out a book, it's not publishing anymore. It's something else. And, a newspaper is not a print magazine anymore, or a print newspaper anymore. It's something else. But it's not advertising anymore. It's something else. Because if you do your job right, which mobile allows you to do, as you said, it becomes that immersive environment where you don't know you're really being advertised to because it's not traditional. It's not banner ads. And there's revenue to be had in this, and there's there's brand loyalty and engagement to be had in this, and you have to start to think a little bit more about these devices, obviously, and how you engage with your customer. But this was, it's funny because the web never materialized as an ad. I mean, it made a lot of money for a lot of people, and but
it's a pretty big business, not mind you.
But it's true. I mean, it's a big business, but it never held this kind of promise, right? where I'm going to pick up my desktop and walk into it with a store and redeem a coupon. And I always had to have that auxiliary port plugged into a machine that allowed me to print out a coupon. And the steps, I think, are the limiting factor, right? So with one of these things,
yeah,
you know, there's no interim step. It becomes the only screen, as you said, where I do everything from it.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's pretty powerful. And then, I mean, because we're talking about, you know, a multi-billion-dollar industry, you know, in online advertising, kind of that's an interim step to the mobile space where you are completely immersed in and being brought into the advertiser's world.
Yeah.
So let's bring this back a little bit because I mean, we're both enthusiastic guys about this space. But you know, how do people start in this? Where do they start? How do they get moving in this? You know, game developers, app developers, mobile website developers. I mean, what if I said, how would a newspaper leverage this?
Mm.
Right? How would a newspaper with their mobile app leverage something like InMobi or Sprout?
Yeah, I mean, newspapers are great if you think about it, right? And they have an amazing connection to the local community because usually newspapers, at least most are local. Obviously, you have the big national. There's even a local edition. It's about location awareness, right? They've got access to a tremendous amount of local and small business advertising. And so, again, with this single device, it would be very feasible that you could be reading a local article about a new restaurant that just opened up, be able to access an ad from that restaurant, drop it into your phone, and make a reservation. I mean, there's no reason that you couldn't actually see an ad, you know, associated with, let's say there was an article about organic greens. Yeah. There's no reason that the local organic sort of green restaurant couldn't have an ad that said, hey, come swing by, 20% off coupon, or hey, would you like to make a reservation right now? You know, that's the type of sort of interactivity that I think is coming and in a way is expected, right? I think if you see and read an article, you don't expect to see just a flat image that says, come to Green's restaurant, here's a phone number, right? That's really not the interaction people are starting to expect. So really a lot of it has to, I believe, has to do with people's sort of heightened expectation of the experience that they have via this mobile device that they carry. Now, on the flip side, as excited as you and I are, there's definitely pundits out there that are crying foul about the privacy issues that this all opens up. I mean, you know, with Apple and iOS 5, they're deprecating the UDID because of the privacy issues. But that's the other thing. I mean, how far is someone willing to allow their privacy to sort of be auctioned off?
Everybody has a price.
Everyone has a price.
They do, and it might not be 10% off, but it may be 50% off, right? Yep. Everybody has a price, and that's what I'm noticing is that, you know, there's a price for a certain amount of your privacy.
Yes.
Right.
That's how there's to it. I mean, we do it all the time, right?
Absolutely. I mean, but it's like, do you have a maybe we can finish on this. Do you have a perfect example of a great advertising campaign in the mobile space that somebody's done today that you've been a part of or not been a part of, but that you could say, you know what, they hit it. I mean, those guys, you know, from the creative all the way down to the way that they interacted with the, you know, the time to location and time and weather, whatever it was that you thought, oh man, I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. Have you seen anything like that?
You know, I'm seeing bits and pieces come together, and I mean, these campaigns are running across, you know, all folks like AdMob or, you know, even the sort of MediaLets guys have had some pretty cool campaigns. I think it's about that call to action. I think the ones that I've seen really work are ones that deal with maps. Like, here's an ad for Baskin-Robbins, but hey, here's where the closest one is, or here's where you can call one. I think those have become really effective. I think a lot of times being able to integrate a lot of the call to actions into the videos. I've seen some really cool ads where it's sort of halfway through, there's sort of a call to action from the video itself that says, hey, click on this to call. But again, I think this is just the tip of it. I think as HTML5 matures, as the market matures, and as companies like InMobi, you know, InMobi's got this whole initiative of this sort of SDK in a box where they're giving developers not just an SDK for the ad network, but around payments, around mediation, around X, Y, and Z. I think that's where we start seeing the marriage between, you know, mobile advertising and the application itself. And I'm just waiting. There's going to be a breakthrough ad that's coming, and hopefully Sprout will be involved in putting that together. But I think that I can smell it. It's just around the corner.
So what do you say to these guys who are out there, with the 300 by 50 banner ads, static on the bottom of a page, or the guys who have the apps that every minute a little interstitial pops up and that isn't relevant to the content you're reading and it just kind of gets in the way? What do you say to these guys that are doing this right now? Are they wasting their money? Are they building the wrong type of apps? I mean, do we give them a shake? What do we say?
Well, I think the marketplace is still young, and there's always a place for that. I mean, there's a lot of performance advertising that goes on. There's a lot of, ads that appear because there's all this inventory that people are trying to fill. Mm-hmm. I say that it'll mature. I think it'll change. I mean, think about the timeline, right? When the web first started, it was, static images and, text ads. And it took 10 years to evolve into these huge page takeovers and, YouTube mastheads. Yeah. It's not going to take 10 years in mobile. No way. What we're seeing in mobile is almost like a dog's life, right? But every year, it's like, a decade from sort of the PC desktop world. So it's moving at lightning speeds, as you and I have both said, and I think it's it's a rocket ship. We're just gonna have to hold on and sort of see where this thing takes us.
Oh, Carnet, I feel that I could talk to you about this forever, but it would just be two guys gushing over the same thing. It would be totally engrossing, but highly unproductive, right? It would be like, yes, you're right, and this, and this.
Yes.
So where can people find a little bit more information about what you're doing? I know Sprout is still up and running. You're a wholly owned group or division now inside of InMobi?
Yeah, so Sprout will retain its business model and its branding. So our platform is completely open. So we actually work with all of InMobi's competitors, essentially. Yeah. And so
how do they like that?
You know what? They're totally open for it because in the end, InMobi's tagline isn't to be a mobile ad network; it's to enable the global mobile ecosystem. Yeah. And what we're doing is helping sort of free up brand dollars to go into the ecosystem so that everyone benefits. And so, they've made a complete commitment to keeping it open. We'll retain our same branding. We've got our own website at sproutinc.com. Yeah. All existing customers, the ad mobs, the Mojivas, etc., are all maintaining their relationship with us. And so I think it's Naveen and the executive team at InMobi, it's a tremendous vision that they have, and it's to really blow out this whole mobile space, and it's not just the ad network. So I think they've got a lot of surprises coming around the corner that I'm very, very happy to be a part of, and I think that Sprout, the acquisition of Sprout, is just the tip of the iceberg for them, and I think we've got a lot that we can do globally, so it's an exciting ride.
I love it. So now I'm intrigued. Now I'm much more than intrigued. I
always have to leave you with a bit of a hanger so we can talk.
Well, you see, Ann did the same thing, and then they bought you, and I'm like, okay, I can't wait to see what happens, right? That's sproutinc.com, and then inmobi.com. You can find some more information, and there's a blog up there at inmobi.com where you can dive into it a little bit deeper about HTML5 ads and this we're calling mobile rich media. This global revolution. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you that you think is important?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that we did start Sprout in Honolulu, Hawaii. So we do have our roots in the islands. Very proud to say that very few technology startups have come out of a small island nation, 3,000 miles from anywhere. So
no kidding.
A big aloha to all my Hawaii folks.
I love it. I love it. And are you angling for the Hawaiian office of InMobi? Is that what
we actually have a Hawaii Sprout office already, so all set up.
Nice. It's so perfect.
It's amazing how many InMobi people are saying, I think I need to visit the Sprout office next week.
Wait, some operational thing like the...
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's only 5 engineers out there, but sure, if you want to come out and visit.
I'll go down. Look, I'll take it. I'll go down and clean the office. How's that? But I don't think that there's. San Mateo, Hawaii. I don't think you're lacking for you're suffering from a lack of sunshine. Sorry.
No, we've been lucky. Very fortunate.
So all the way from Hawaii. I think this is great. So go to sproutinc.com if you're interested in understanding how this is working. Take a look at some of the demos of the ads that they've done. There's a great Tron one. Perfect example of how to integrate rich media like a movie or a trailer into the application. I think that, boy, Tron, rich media, add a layer of a location around that, buying tickets, expiring inventory. This is it's powerful. And so sometimes I look at what's out there and I'm thinking, come on, we're almost there. Just stop doing that garbage that you're doing. Stop trying to cram in a message this big onto a screen this small. But I know we got to be patient a little bit to get there, and I know that we feel the same way. Carnet, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I really appreciate your time and the fact that you've come out and I love the fact that you're so enthusiastic about this industry, and I can't wait to see what comes next from you guys with Sprout and also within Moby. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks to everyone who's out there listening. And hopefully, you and I have a chance to talk in, Rob. Well, I'm sure we'll sneak a new announcement out with you sometime soon.
I hope so. I can't wait. You got me intrigued. I've been speaking with Carnet Williams, who is his official title is VP Sprout and Brand Solutions for InMobi. Go to Sprout Inc. or go to sproutinc.com or inmobi.com to find some more information, get a little bit more detailed information, obviously. For those of you who are watching or listening, wherever you are, thank you so much for doing this. You're the reason that I do this. And hopefully, if you have any comments, bring them to me at untether@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you, guys. Carnet, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time on untether.tv.